To begin with, I started by selecting or using a specific mask, yes, for my background. Now this mask counts exactly for my height blends, as you can see here. Yes, this gives us the position of the rocks, but if we invert it, it just gives us the position of the concrete. So this is only to select and see that I am choosing the right area. Now what I did here is I just picked the curvature smooth information to use it as a base for all of my details in my base color. Initially, I created one gradient map to which I actually duplicated, but I changed the input of the grayscale information. So they are basically exactly the same colors. Yes, you can see here that they have the same colors and the same amount. They don't change at all. But the only difference is that the grayscale input is different. So this one has more contrast, with this one is not that contrasty at all. Now I use a purling noise to make a mask, so these colors could be more randomly placed around the area and they won't be that strong. And that's how I actually put this in the first place for my background color on the concrete. Now following up, what I did was I got a grunge concrete moss mold from Substance Painter. And I multiplied that by the information on my curvature smooth. That allowed me to create a new gradient map which has way more detail with more like darker information. Now I got this into specific masks because I knew what I wanted to do. So basically what I did is I converted the information from my first initial base color into grayscale information and multiplied it by the mask. Then I got levels to get the highest points of my concrete detail, as you can see here. Yes, the highest points at all. You can see the actual parameters here on the right for my levels. You can see these are each of these you can have to fill in your levels. And then I invert this information so I have the highest part as well. That's how I actually connect all the information here to go from this to this. Now I also blended both type of information and take advantage of these levels just to make a small change from this to this. Yes, we are always using almost the same color. We are not like, the secret here is to use mask, guys. Like regardless, everything I'm gonna show you and keep on showing you right now, the secret to what you have to do is a lot of color, a lot of masks, and being soft with it. Don't be so harsh with it. You see that here I'm being delicate with everything I do. So by blending these kind of colors, then I pull them on top of my unique color, but I'm using a value 0.75 copy. Yes, and here's when it comes to fun. We are having, yes, the same grunge map as before, but with a random seed with a directional warp, and this directional warp is warping the grunge map by the curvature move information we have on this mask. From there, we just transform the information to color, and we use a multiply just to make some areas a little bit darker, you know. I felt the material was way too bright at this moment, yes, on the background. So I guess that if I add something like this, it would make the material darker, and it actually worked quite well. Now, of course, as I made things darker, I also need to make them a little bit, you know, kind of brighter in other areas. So I use an HSL to lighten up a little bit the color, and then use that mask to fix that. Yeah, this is basically because here it's completely different. So here I'm kind of generating a new color with a previous mask. Yes, and in this one I'm just pulling up the values of it. Now in the following blend notes, the only thing I did was actually color, yes, the broken areas, as you can see. So I got basically the mask from the concrete and I blended with the actual detail I used to break the concrete, yes, to break these areas. I pulled this throughout the threshold so the result was more exact, and I grabbed the information from my curvature smooth to create a gradient map, yeah. And I picked the information of course from my reference, to which I use a screen mode to actually fill this information, as you can see. The idea was to make these areas with a different color from what I had on the other places, mainly because I wanted this to feel a little bit more, you know, like different. If the concrete breaks, what's in the surface is going to be different to what's inside in color. And usually it's brighter because the concrete from outside is usually more, let's say, dirty than the insides, of course. So we repeat this several times, yes, 2 times actually, to build 2 kinds of details you can see here. Yes, the amount is not that much in the second detail, it's actually not doing much to be honest, but it's still there and it might help a little bit into what you're doing. So the next step was to actually color the stones, and I keep it really simple because these stones are really small. They're barely visible in the render. So first I got a mask, yes. So I got all the stones, yes, with a threshold, yes. I grabbed all my stones, put them into this threshold and multiply by the mask of the cement because I only wanted to color those stones, not any other kind of stones. Now the next step was I need to color each individual stone, and if I have to choose a specific individual stone for each of them, I'm just gonna go crazy. So what I did was I grabbed the flat fill and set these 2 flat fills to random grayscale. Then use a gradient map and choose 3 colors, and now each of these stones has different color that go from this color to this color, having this one in the middle. Now there's some extra steps here that they're useful if you want to. So basically I grabbed the ambient occlusion and multiplied by my base color just to add some depths. It's good to do, but I wouldn't recommend it to give it so strong as I'm doing here. Yes, it's better to control these things maybe in your render software. Then I sharpen my base color. Sharpening your base color really makes a change on your material. You can see that how now this here looks kind of soft, but if I add a sharpen, this looks more realistic. Because details in real life are actually more sharpened and have more defined shapes. Sharpen helps us do that in all our materials. And you can see in this stone, for example, if I remove this, it's just gonna look good, but not as good as if I sharpen this as well. Finally, if you're going to use this in Unreal Engine, make sure to use the levels at the end and change the output forward to 8 bits per channel. This is really important, as if you're going to use it in Unreal Engine, if you have your base color in 8 bits, it will take all the information and the base color will be correct. If it is in 16 bits per channel, Unreal Engine won't be able to read correctly the information, and that's why you're going to have a base color that is lightened up, meaning the result is not going to be the same. Now, believe it or not, the roughness is actually quite simple, and the reason for that is because we did an amazing job with the base color before, and it's so highly detailed that we actually don't need to do much from it. So I got the result from my base color, yes, which is actually sharpened here, but for some reason I just did it again here, which is actually not that smart, but for the moment it worked, and I turned this into grayscale basically. So now we actually have a roughness for our material with not having that much to do. I use a histogram scan to align this better to what I want, and I add some information from my dirt mask from the previous chapter where we did the actual dirt for all the material, yes, especially for the stones basically, not the concrete, because we did cover up that later. Yes, and that's how I actually made the roughness. So the roughness, as I said before, it's quite simple. But why I'm adding the dirt on top of the other information? That's simple. So dirt, yes, is not as reflective as maybe the stones. If I come here, there's actually no detail of the dirt at all. It's barely visible. Why? Because dirt in our base color is brown, and it has a darker tone. As it has a darker tone, then what happens is that it's not really shown here more than maybe just some of these specks that you can see here that are barely bright. So by adding that information to our roughness, what we are doing is basically taking care that there is some roughness variation that is very well defined. And this material would change a lot if we actually have that or not in there, specifically when it comes to the render. So guys, I hope you liked this chapter and that you were able to complete this whole material, and I'll be seeing you during these weeks. Goodbye.